Peace and blessings, beloved. Come here to be educated, empowered, enlightened, inspired, motivated, and challenged to be critical and independent thinkers. Let's get to it.
Yeah, believe in yourself. Who else gonna believe in you? Who else gonna believe in you? Who else gonna believe in you? Believe in yourself. Yeah. Who else gonna believe in you? Who else gonna believe in you? Who else gonna believe in you? Believe in yourself. Healthy.
You find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, 1/2 a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. Hell yeah. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw with our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's going to make the fucking difference between winning and losing. Between living and dying. I'll tell you this, in any fight, it's the guy who's willing to die who's going to win that inch. And I know if I'm going to have any life anymore, it's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that inch. Because that's what living is. The 6 inches in front of your face. Now, I can't make you do it. You got to look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. Now, I think you're going to see a guy who will go that inch with you. You're going to see a guy who will sacrifice himself for this team because he knows when it comes down to it, you're going to do the same for him. That's a team, gentlemen. And either we heal now as a team or we will die as individuals. That's football, guys. That's all it is. Now, what are you going to do?
Peace and blessings, beloved. I pray all is well with you and yours. And welcome to the Postscript for the D Rose Believe in Yourself video series. We're going to cover Any Given Sunday, my previous allusion to it in the original video, where I discussed that movie being a prime example of how the modern day athlete was raised to think of himself and his obligation to whatever sport that he played. All right, and certainly that speech was inspirational, as given by Al Pacino, coach of the football team in Any Given Sunday. No doubt it was impactful and effective in its purpose to garner support and garner confidence and raw emotion from each player and the team collectively. And so I have no doubt, and of course I've seen the movie, but just by sheer virtue of the speech, I have no doubt that those men went out there and performed at their best. And so that perfectly ties in the topics that I wish to cover in this video and what I alluded to in the original video. And that is of the psyche of the modern day athlete. And what I wanted to do, of course, what I always want to do is enlighten as much as possible. So what we'll do is we'll touch on the origin of the modern day athlete, so you can see the evolution of said athlete and have everything in its proper context, so that we can properly assess the story of Derrick Rose and his naysayers, his haters, both, being contemporaries, members of the media, fans, and people who just hear certain portions or snippets of the story and cast judgment.
Gladiators. A gladiator was an armed warrior who entertained large audiences in the Roman Empire in violent battles with other gladiators, wild animals, and criminals. Most gladiators were treated as slaves, schooled under frightful conditions, and socially ignored. But irrespective of where they came from, gladiators offered the audience an example of Rome's martial principles, and in their battles as well as death, they inspired admiration and popularity. Gladiator games provided their owners and sponsors with expensive but effective opportunities to promote themselves while offering cheap and exciting entertainment. These games were also run by politicians who wanted to reach the top. A politically ambitious person would often organize shows which would in turn drum up votes, thus helping him rise in power. Ownership of gladiators or a gladiator school gave muscle and flair to Roman politics. Some of the most celebrated gladiator games were held at the great Roman Colosseum, built in Rome. Capable of seating approximately 50,000 spectators, the Colosseum was known for gladiator contests as well as other public spectacles such as animal hunts, executions, reenactments of famous banter and drama based on classical mythology. Some of the Roman emperors gave away huge sums of money to the gladiators, this including property and residence equal to those of men who had celebrated triumph. Mark Antony often even promoted gladiators to his personal guard. By the 3rd century, the gladiator popularity was no longer at its peak. People could no longer afford a gladiator game. The government implied unfair taxes on its people, and this created a huge rift between the rich and the poor. Gladiators were finally banned at the turn of the 5th century after Christianity was adopted as the state religion. Gladiatorial games were replaced by theatrical shows and chariot races, the latter remaining extremely popular through the 6th century. Those who were condemned to become gladiators for their involvement in crimes were given jobs at mines. They could now pay for their crimes working without having to shed their blood for it.
All right, so what you noticed there in that brief history of gladiators was the origin of the actual sport, the purpose of it, the impact that it had on the society of the time, and how it evolved into what we see now as modern day sport. And so just a few things I wanted to touch on and reiterate. You have the term spectacle, which just means a visually striking performance or display, coming from the Latin spectaculum, meaning public display. And so what we have is the audience, which is the spectator, watching a spectacle for their entertainment. So it reminds me of that song by Usher, My Life, Your Entertainment. And basically, it speaks to how certain industries have been propped up to be entertainment for us, to be minstrel for us, to be distractions for us, as was alluded to in the video. As you saw, the Roman emperor paid for these events, these spectacles, and his intention was to make each consecutive one or each following one more outlandish, more outrageous, more extravagant than the last, all in an effort to distract the spectator, which, by and large was the poor and impoverished, as was the general population of the time and of current time. So you see, that society mirrors in many ways, this current society, because few things have changed. Kingdoms have risen and fallen, but few things have changed. And so getting back on track, again, I just wanted to set the table for our discussion on the movie Any Given Sunday and how it really, really hit on the point of, this expectation that we have for the modern day athlete, this objectification and this pressure that we put on them and that they put on themselves because of how they've been groomed and modeled into adulthood and in their maturity in professional athletics. And so I think this will be a very nice transition for us to go actually into the clips from the movie. Now we understand what modern sport is, what the purpose of it is, what the expectation of the combatants, or in this case the athletes, is. And now you understand that this was set in motion way before our time and our ancestors' time. We have to go back centuries. And again, it's very interesting that very little has changed outside of the commercialization of the actual profession of sports and the marketplace being opened up and the participants going from being slaves or criminals into people who are groomed from a very young age to be athletes because they know that financial impact on their lives is life-changing. And so that's a different dynamic, but little else outside of that has changed. Oh, and I forgot to mention, they made it a point to touch on the aspect of admiration and popularity as far as what the combatants conjured up for the spectators. And so you can definitely see that is translated very well over the centuries. As we know, now athletes and entertainers at large are propped up to be admired. They're given every opportunity to become popular so they can be admired, so they can be propped up and sponsored and pushed by a corporation in the way of endorsements, all, under the guise of being paid handsomely to be used as a shill and a tool. And so again, nothing has really changed outside of the monetization. They're still tools, they're still assets, they're still pawns. They're still being used for political gain, for political influence, for corporate gain, for corporate influence. It's just that now we have given them an excuse to be so by paying them. So pretty much they're prostituting their bodies to move forward a certain agenda. And we'll get deeper into that as we talk about the concept of bread and circus in a separate video. But I just think it's worth noting, when we get these athletes who want to be activists and socially acting woke, it's very important to understand where they're getting their messaging from and whether or not they're truly enlightened and abreast and knowledgeable enough to touch on the given topics that they've chosen to sponsor and to speak out against. And so it goes very deep, man. It just behooves us to be critical, independent thinkers, and that's why I created this platform. And, it's definitely my sincere prayer that we not take the bait and not fall for the okie doke. Because, very, very frankly, very candidly speaking,
oh, I say it again, you've been had. You've been took. You've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok. This is what he does.
All right, fam, we've reached the end of this video. I pray that it was enlightening to you and that you took something from it that'll stay with you, as the primary goal was just to shed light on the idea of the modern day athlete and that use of the word gladiator and warrior and how it spawned, and just trying to make that connection so we all have a better understanding of the language that we use and its origin and how it shapes our perspective on a particular topic, in this case sport and the athlete, and then how the actual subject views himself, herself. So having said that, stay tuned, keep rocking with your boy. As always, thank you for the support, thank you for the love. It definitely does not go unnoticed. Until next time, be blessed and be a blessing.
Yeah, believe in yourself. Who else gonna believe in you? Who else gonna believe in you? Who else gonna believe in you? Believe in yourself. Yeah. Who else gonna believe in you? Who else gonna believe in you? Who else gonna believe in you? Believe in yourself. Health is wealth.
That's a wrap. Don't forget to like, share, follow, subscribe, and comment. Also check us out on IG, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, Tumblr, and Patreon, all under LUSU Media Group. And as always, you can get in-depth content on Patreon once you subscribe. Also check out our LUSU Designs Lifestyle Apparel, which you can now purchase online. See the description for the links. And last but certainly not least, shout out all my sponsors for their support. Definitely appreciate the love on there, and the info is also below in the description. Alright family, until next time, be blessed and be a blessing.